try the rear locker. And I'm going to start with locking the rear diff.
What is up, guys? Dakota here, and welcome back to the Driven Mad channel. So today's video is going to be about how and when you should use your locking differentials on your off-road vehicle, because off-roading can be a lot of fun, but it can also be a little bit intimidating, especially if you're not really sure when you're supposed to do certain things with your vehicle. Today's video is going to be all about that. How to use them, when to turn them off, when to turn them on. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. All right, so real quick, before we get too deep into this, what I wanted to do is just kind of give you guys a brief overview of kind of what a locking differential does. Not anything crazy in depth, I'm not a mechanical engineer, just some kind of a brief overview. So every vehicle has a rear differential, front differential. Most vehicles have what's known as a open diff, which means the wheels can spin at different speeds. Is basically what that means, is that when you're making a turn, this wheel, if you're turning this way, can spin at a different speed than the outside wheel, which will allow easier maneuverability, less stress on the components, etc., etc. So, for example, in this, it has a locking front and rear differential. Same as a Wrangler Rubicon, same as a Bronco Badlands or Sasquatch package Bronco. All that means is, maneuverability-wise, you want your diffs open, so the wheels can spin at different speeds, so it's easier to make turns, things like U-turns and stuff like that, and it's just less stress on the components. When you lock the differential, what that does is it forces the wheels to spin at the same speed. Sometimes you'll hit an obstacle, and it'll push one wheel up. There's a lot of force and pressure on this wheel, so it will just send all of it to the wheel that's kind of dropped down and not really getting much traction, and that wheel will just sit there and spin. When you lock the diff, it forces those wheels to spin at the same speed. It locks them together. So that way, if this wheel's spinning, this wheel is going to spin, which will allow you to get up and over some obstacles. So very brief description of what it does, but it basically just forces the wheels to spin at the same speed. So when one vehicle isn't touching the ground, isn't getting any traction, instead of all that power getting sent to this wheel, power will get equally sent to the other wheel that may have some traction, which is the whole point of having a locking differential. Now we've kind of established that, let's go ahead and get into some off-roading and kind of talk about when to use them and whatnot. All right, so real quick, on this section of trail that I'm on currently, this is an area where you don't need to use your lockers. This is just basically kind of a rougher gravel road. I'm actually not even in 4 low. I'm in 2 high at the moment. So I'm literally just in 2-wheel drive with my tires aired down and no lockers. There's no need to use your lockers on stuff like this. Now, some people have said, again, because I've seen it in my comments, that, you know, if you're on a trail, you should just leave your lockers on the whole time. I completely disagree with that. That's dumb. Because on stuff like this, you do not need to have your lockers on. All you're doing is limiting your maneuverability, and you're also putting way more stress on your components than you need to. On stuff like this, leave your lockers off. There's no need to have them on. And again, a lot of this is also going to come down to just experience over time. Like, you're gonna make mistakes the same way as if, you know, riding a bike or riding a motorcycle. Like, things are gonna happen, you're gonna mess up, but you know, just kind of use a little bit of judgment, right? Like, if it looks kind of just like a gravel road, you probably don't need to have your lockers on. And like I said, I'm gonna show you guys here a few spots where maybe you might use your locker, maybe you wouldn't, maybe you try it without it, then sometimes you need to just pop it on. But I would recommend, unless you're in a really tricky spot on a really tough trail, when you're just kind of cruising along and you're not trying to hit like a obstacle or something like that, turn them off. Leave your lockers off. Don't leave them on just in case you happen to need them. That's why you can turn them on or off. So when you're just cruising around like I am right now, leave them off. Don't even think about it. Just drive the trail. And then once you come up to an obstacle, then we'll kind of talk about whether or not you might need to engage them or not. All right, well, I just had to help out a little Pathfinder. All right, I'm helping out a stuck Pathfinder here real quick. Because I guess they lost reverse, which is not good, but luckily they're back out on the park road, so they don't have to worry about backing up anymore. Now, we're coming up to an obstacle where you might look at it and go, ooh, should I use a locker for that? And if you did,
wouldn't be a problem. You totally could. Again, a lot of this is gonna kind of depend on learning your vehicle and learning what it can and can't do. So if you were to lock it, no big deal. I am gonna, however, go at it unlocked and just let it crawl its way up here. And there you go. No big deal. However, if you did lock it, now that we're back on flat ground, go ahead and unlock that diff. So again, something like that, it might look intimidating when you're in the vehicle because obviously on camera doesn't do any of that type of stuff justice. But when you're in the vehicle and your car starts to move around, your truck, whatever, starts to move around, you're gonna feel weird. And if you lock the diff, that's totally fine. Just make sure that when you get back on level ground and you're trying to, for example, make a turn, you do disengage that locking diff. All right, so this next obstacle that we're looking at, we're going kind of up and kind of at an angle, we're turning, and there's a potential for maybe one wheel to not get as much traction as the other. So in this scenario, going up this particular obstacle, again, rear locker, 90% of the time is gonna be able to get you out of most situations. You don't have to worry about, well, do I do both or whatever? Just click one, go with the rear at first. Then if you're still having issues, add the front. Rule of thumb, add the rear first. In this particular one, I'm gonna go up it without any lockers and just kind of see, show you guys what happens if it slips, because there's no guarantee that it does. It's, I can't tell it to slip. So we're gonna see here. Well, I think we made it up without any slipping. So again, even if you had locked the diff, that's okay in that scenario. It wouldn't have been like, oh no, you did something wrong. It's just, now that we're past the obstacle, we're back on the regular part of the trail, unlock the diff. So we're gonna see if we can find maybe a little bit harder spots to maybe try to lock the diffs on, so I can show you guys kind of the difference between the two. So real quick guys, one thing that I kind of want to point out while I'm heading to hopefully a bit more tougher spot is when you're off-roading, one thing to keep in mind is if you look at something and if it looks like the vehicle's gonna get kind of twisty, like you're gonna get pretty flexy, and it looks like maybe one wheel's gonna get pushed up, the other wheel's gonna drop, and the opposite on the other end, then go ahead and just lock a rear diff. No harm to it. Hit the obstacle, and if you make it through, great. If you don't, and like halfway up you start slipping and you start sliding and everything, then you can either try to back up and go up a different line, or if you have a front locker, go ahead and engage that front locker to see if that will help you get the traction you need. Because sometimes what happens is, especially if you're going uphill, you have a lot of weight on those rear tires, but not a lot on the front. If the fronts are spinning a lot, then they're not gripping as much. So you might have one that has a little bit more pressure than the other, and that one up front is just kind of sitting there not doing anything. You're able to lock it, and then it forces that wheel that does have traction to put that power to the ground. If you go up an obstacle and it doesn't work the first time, who cares? No big deal. It's not like there's a point system where they're gonna keep track of you and be like, oh, well, you've engaged your diff X amount of times. You're having fun, so don't take it too serious. If you go up an obstacle and you start slipping and you're like, man, I gotta engage the diff, cool. Or if you engage it before you hit it, awesome. Again, a lot of it's just gonna be getting used to your driving skill, your vehicle, and learning, engaging certain obstacles with those two combos, with your driving skill and with your vehicle, looking at an obstacle and going, I know I'm gonna need to lock the diff on that one. I've done it in my Bronco, although most of the time, usually when I'm in the Bronco or the Wrangler, I just like to see what I can get through without them. But I also know realistically, okay, I might have to lock the rear diff to actually get through this. Okay guys, so I think we have found an obstacle where I'm rolling through, but I might have to lock the diff. Right now diffs are unlocked. You guys can see, got a little bit of bucking action going. So when that happens, again, all I'm gonna do is back up just a tiny bit, put it back in the drive, and I'm gonna start with locking the rear diff. See if that helps, because what's happening is the driver front tire is sinking in, and this passenger rear tire is sinking in, so this one's not getting any grip and neither is that one. So we're gonna see if just one diff locked will make the difference. And look at that. That's all it is. And now, since I'm still kind of in a little bit of a more difficult part, I'm just gonna leave the rear diff on until I get up to a spot where I'm definitely back on being on level-ish ground. Now that I'm on level ground, I'm gonna turn the diff off. There you go. It's that simple. It's not super hard. You just notice some slip, engage diff. It's kind of, that sounds really, really lame the way I just said that, but that's pretty much how it is. So yeah, guys, I mean, that's pretty much the extent of when to lock your diff. You start to slip, start to feel like you're not really moving, you start to kind of what I call bucking, where the vehicle just kind of does that. Then, you know, that's when you probably need to go ahead and engage a locked diff. Oop, scraping a little bit there. Trying to go down this really slow, because I don't want to bang up my mom's Colorado, because we all know that I've done that before. So now as far as going down that obstacle, which is what I'm doing now, you really don't have to lock a diff, unless you maybe might end up having to back up and going up it. But as far as going down, really you're just gonna kind of let gravity do the work. You don't, I personally, I just leave them unlocked when I'm going downhill, because again, gravity's gonna do the work for you and kind of just bring you down. So it's not necessarily a do you have traction, it's more of just kind of making sure you go down correctly and not too fast and don't tip over. So, because right there, you know, it kind of lost some traction. Again, as far as going down the obstacle, leave your diffs open so you can make turns, you can do all that stuff. Because again, as soon as you lock your front diff, if you have a locking front diff, you're going to have a hard time maneuvering and stuff. It really binds your steering wheel up when you're doing that. But that's pretty much it. Again, just if you take anything away from this video, it's when you slip, engage a diff. That's pretty much it. And yeah, and again, going downhill, going down a fairly, you know, intimidating obstacle, leave them unlocked unless you need to back up, then you can engage them that way.
All right, guys, so there you have it. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, not as difficult as it may seem. It's literally just, it's gonna be trial and error. And again, you'll learn your skill level, you'll learn your vehicle skill level, what it's capable of, and then you'll kind of know when to engage the diff. But again, there's nothing saying that you can't engage it on an obstacle just because. You can. Just remember to disengage it once you're clear of it and you're back on the regular trail that isn't anything intense. Because what you don't want to do is put too much stress on your vehicle, break it, and then you don't have a locker to get you out of a tricky situation. So anyways, guys, I hope this video helped. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more videos, whether we're using the Colorado, the Bronco, or the 392. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.